Walter Brown smacked his head on another low bulkhead. Damn aliens designed everything for their own stumpy anatomy. Massaging his scalp, the middle-aged human janitor ducked into the gleaming bridge of the Denobulan flagship, ready for his first day scrubbing spotless alien floors. The massive ship bustled with activity as the stern-faced Denobulan crew prepped for a crucial deep space mission. Commander Taurus swiveled his command chair to face Walter, eyeing the human with overt disdain. "Listen closely, human." Taurus spat the word like an insult. "Your kind has never before sullied a Denobulan vessel with their presence. An outdated treaty obligation and regrettable clerical error are the only reasons you're here. Stay out of my crew's way. Don't touch anything and maybe you'll survive this posting." Walter swallowed hard, the commander's seething contempt palpable. He was starting to question the wisdom of leaving Earth for this groundbreaking job opportunity. It seemed like the only thing getting broken would be him if he put one foot wrong among the hostile alien crew. As he began his duties, Walter noticed the ship was already pristine, without a speck of dust anywhere. Advanced Denobulan cleaning drones hummed along the corridors, their scanners hunting down every last microbe. Did these guys really need a human janitor, especially one they clearly despised and distrusted? With each stroke of his mop, Walter felt the weight of dozens of suspicious alien eyes tracking his every move, expecting him to somehow taint their precious ship. The fate of fragile interspecies relations rested on Walter's shoulders. One careless smudge, and the Denobulans might decide humanity wasn't worth the trouble. Well, fine then. If they expected a cleaning job worthy of representing Earth, he'd damn well give them one they'd never forget. Walter redoubled his efforts, determined to make first contact a clean sweep for humankind. As the Denobulan ship cruised into the inky void of deep space, Walter fell into a steady rhythm of cleaning. The days blurred together as he polished, scrubbed, and wiped every surface to an unnatural sheen. His alien crewmates barely spared him a glance, their mistrust still simmering beneath the surface. One fateful shift, as Walter tidied a laboratory that gleamed like a mirror, his elbow accidentally jostled a vial perched precariously on a shelf. The container tumbled in slow motion, shattering on the floor. A viscous, clear liquid oozed out, hissing faintly as it spread. "Shit, shit, shit," Walter muttered, scrambling for his cleaning supplies. He sopped up the spill with a rag, which promptly dissolved into nothing. Startled, he watched the substance eat through the floor panel, leaving a gaping hole. Heart pounding, Walter glanced around furtively before fishing out a sample vial from his cart. He scooped a dollop of the strange liquid into it, then hastily patched the hole with a metal sheet. Pocketing the vial, Walter fled the lab, his mind reeling with questions. In the weeks that followed, an eerie pattern emerged. Tools vanished from workstations. Crew members reported misplacing items, from datapads to personal effects. Whispers of confusion and unease rippled through the ship. Commander Taurus's already sour demeanor curdled further as the incidents escalated. "Who took the backup navigation module?" he snarled, slamming a fist on his console. "I want every inch of this vessel searched until it's found." Despite the crew's frantic efforts and advanced scanning technology, the missing equipment remained elusive. Taurus paced the bridge like a caged animal, his fury building as the ship drifted off course without its crucial navigational instruments. In a moment of desperation, Taurus rounded on Walter. "You, human," he spat. "Your primitive senses may prove useful for once. Aid in the search. Find out what's happening on my ship, or I'll jettison you out the airlock." Walter, his heart in his throat, nodded vigorously. He set to work, combing the ship with a keen eye honed by years of cleaning up other people's messes. As he retraced his steps, a chilling realization dawned on him. The disappearances all seemed to originate from areas he had recently cleaned, areas where he might have accidentally spilled that strange, dissolving substance. A substance now tucked away in his pocket, waiting to be studied. Walter's hands trembled as he grasped the implications. What had he unleashed on this ship? And more importantly, how could he fix it before the Denobulans discovered the truth and made good on their airlock threat? Walter burst into Taurus's quarters, heart pounding with the weight of his discovery, but he stopped short at the sight of the commander frantically tearing apart his room, tossing aside furniture and belongings in a desperate search. "Commander Taurus, I need to talk to you about the missing equipment," Walter began, trying to keep his voice steady. Taurus whirled around, his eyes blazing with fury. This is all you're doing, isn't it? Sabotaging my ship, undermining my mission. I should have known better than to trust a human." He stalked towards Walter, fists clenched. Walter held up his hands, taking a step back. "No, sir, I would never. But I think I know what's causing the disappearances. The substance I found, the one that dissolves things." "Enough of your lies," Taurus snarled. "I'll have you thrown in the brig for this treachery." "Please, just listen," Walter pleaded. "Your data pad, the one with the sensitive information, I think it may have been dissolved too." Taurus paused, his rage momentarily replaced by a flicker of fear. "How do you know about that?" "I don't, not really. But it fits the pattern. I can prove it to you if you'll let me." Taurus hesitated, torn between suspicion and desperation. "Fine, but if this is a trick—" Walter nodded, swallowing hard. "I need something small, something you don't mind losing, to test my theory." Taurus ripped a patch from his spare uniform and tossed it to Walter. "Get on with it, then." With shaking hands, Walter placed the patch on Taurus's desk, the surface still gleaming from his recent cleaning. He fished the vial from his pocket and let a single drop fall onto the patch. It sizzled and dissolved, leaving no trace behind. Taurus stared at the empty spot, his face a mask of shock and growing horror. "What is that substance? Where did it come from?" "I found it in the lab, after I accidentally knocked over a vial. I didn't know what it was, I swear. I just cleaned it up and kept a sample to study later." Taurus closed his eyes, his jaw clenched tight. When he spoke again, his voice was dangerously calm. "You will take me to this lab, now, and pray to whatever gods you believe in that we can fix this mess you've made." Walter led the way, Taurus close on his heels. The corridors seemed to stretch endlessly, the sterile white walls pressing in on them. Crew members hurried past, their faces etched with worry and confusion. Suddenly the lights overhead flickered once, twice, then plunged the ship into darkness. Walter stumbled, his heart leaping into his throat. Red emergency lights flared to life, bathing everything in an eerie crimson glow. Taurus cursed under his breath. "What now?" As if in answer, a low rumble echoed through the ship, growing louder with each passing second. The floor beneath their feet began to vibrate, then shake violently. Walter grabbed onto a bulkhead for support, his eyes wide with fear. Around them, the whispers of the crew turned to shouts of alarm. Something was very wrong with the denobulan ship, and Walter had a sinking feeling that he was at the center of it all. The tremors intensified as Walter and Taurus raced through the quaking corridors, the search party close on their heels. The once immaculate hallways of the denobulan ship were now cast in shadows, the eerie red glow of the emergency lights painting everything in a sinister hue. As they neared the laboratory, a sense of dread settled in the pit of Walter's stomach. The door loomed before them, sealed shut as if to contain some unspeakable horror within. Taurus pounded on the unyielding metal with a clenched fist, his frustration mounting with each futile strike. "Get this damn door open now," he barked at the crew, his voice strained with barely contained panic. The crew members set to work, their tools sparking and whirring as they attempted to override the lock. Walter pressed closer, his heart hammering in his chest. As he neared the door, a faint, pulsating glow caught his eye, emanating from the crack beneath the threshold. It seemed to beckon him, a siren's call of impending doom. With a hiss of hydraulics, the door finally yielded, sliding open to reveal a nightmarish scene. The once pristine laboratory had been transformed into a hellscape, overrun by a glowing gelatinous mass that oozed and pulsated with malevolent intent. It crept along the walls and floor, consuming everything in its path like a ravenous beast. The crew members recoiled in horror, their faces contorted in disbelief and revulsion. Taurus's eyes widened, his stern facade crumbling as he beheld the abomination before them. He rounded on the ship's scientists, his voice trembling with barely contained rage and fear. The scientists stammered and shook their heads, unable to provide any explanation for the nightmare unfolding before them. As the crew debated their next move, a blood-curdling scream pierced the air, emanating from the far end of the laboratory. Walter's head snapped in the direction of the sound, his blood running cold at the sight that greeted him. One of the denobulan scientists, who had ventured too close to the gelatinous mass, was being rapidly consumed by the substance. His body convulsed and writhed as the glowing tendrils engulfed him, his screams fading into a sickening gurgle as he was swallowed whole. Acting on instinct, Walter lunged for a nearby fire extinguisher, aiming the nozzle at the encroaching mass. He squeezed the trigger, unleashing a torrent of foam onto the pulsating horror. But to his dismay, the substance continued to spread, undeterred by his efforts. If anything, it seemed to grow more agitated, its pulsing rhythm intensifying with each passing second. Taurus, his face ashen, made a snap decision. Evacuate the area now. Seal off this deck and initiate lockdown protocols. We can't let this thing spread any further. The crew hastily retreated, their footsteps echoing through the corridors as they fled the nightmarish scene. Walter lingered for a moment, transfixed by the hypnotic movements of the gelatinous mass. It pulsated and writhed, almost as if it were alive and sentient, driven by some unknowable purpose. As he backed away, a chill ran down Walter's spine. What had he unleashed upon this ship? And more importantly, how could they hope to stop it before it consumed them all? In the frantic race to escape the spreading horror, Walter found himself cut off from the retreating crew, the winding corridors of the denobulan ship suddenly alien and treacherous. Heart pounding, he plunged into the twisting maze of the locked-down deck, the eerie silence broken only by the distant thrum of the ship's engines and his own ragged breathing. As he turned a corner, a faint glow caught his eye, emanating from a hidden door set flush against the bulkhead. Curiosity overtaking caution, Walter approached, his trembling hand finding the release mechanism. The door slid open with a soft hiss, revealing a secret room that hummed with the frenetic energy of a forbidden laboratory. Stepping inside, Walter's eyes widened at the sight of the denobulan research facility. Its sterile surfaces cluttered with data pads, vials, and strange, pulsating containers. He moved to the central console, his fingers flying over the controls as he accessed the lab's logs and experiment records. What he discovered sent a chill down his spine. The denobulans, in their relentless pursuit of cleanliness, had sought to create the ultimate cleaning solution, a self-replicating substance that could break down any matter it encountered, assimilating it into its own ever-expanding mass. But the record spoke of danger, of experiments gone wrong, and a project ultimately deemed too risky to continue. As Walter delved deeper, a chilling revelation emerged. The lead scientist, Dr. Zoran, driven by an obsessive need for perfection, had refused to abandon his work. In secret, he had pressed on, his experiments growing ever more reckless and unhinged. The final log entry ended abruptly, a testament to the doctor's descent into madness. Walter stood frozen, a creeping sense of dread washing over him. Then a sound shattered the stillness, a scuffling noise from the darkened corner of the lab. Heart in his throat, Walter edged closer, peering into the shadows. There, hunched over a flickering console, was Dr. Zoran himself, his once pristine uniform hanging in tattered shreds, his eyes wild and unfocused. The scientist muttered feverishly, his words a jumble of equations and half-formed praises to his creation. "Dr. Zoran," Walter's voice was barely a whisper, but it cut through the doctor's mad ramblings like a knife. Zoran's head snapped up, his gaze locking onto Walter with a feverish intensity. You're the human," he hissed, his voice raw and grating. "Come to marvel at my genius, have you? To witness the birth of perfection itself?" Walter took a step back, his hands raised in a placating gesture. "Doctor, please, we need to stop this. Your creation, it's out of control. It's consuming the ship." A manic laugh bubbled up from Zoran's throat, echoing off the lab's walls. Out of control? No, no, you simple-minded fool. It's just beginning. The cleanser will scour this ship, this galaxy, until all is pure and unblemished. And those who doubted me, who sought to hold me back, they will be the first to feel its embrace. Walter's mind raced, desperately seeking a way to reason with the unhinged scientist. But as he met Zoran's fevered gaze, he saw only the glimmer of a fanatic, a man beyond the reach of logic or sanity. As Zoran took a lurching step forward, his hand clutching a pulsating vial, Walter knew he had only one choice. He had to find a way to stop the cleanser, to save the ship and its crew from the fruits of the doctor's madness. But with Zoran standing between him and any hope of halting the spreading horror, Walter feared that his own fate, and that of everyone aboard, might already be sealed. Walter's heart pounded as he faced the unhinged scientist, hands raised in a placating gesture. "Dr. Zoran, please, we can find a solution. This doesn't have to end in more destruction." Zoran's eyes flashed with manic fervor. "You still don't understand, do you? The cleanser is the solution. It will scour this imperfect universe, leaving only purity in its wake." Before Walter could react, Zoran lunged forward, a syringe filled with glowing green liquid clutched in his hand. The two men grappled, Walter desperately trying to keep the needle from his skin. With a surge of adrenaline, he wrenched Zoran's arm back, sending the syringe flying. It shattered on the floor, the liquid within splattering across Walter's forearm. He watched in horror as it spread rapidly, his skin growing numb in its wake. Zoran cackled, his laughter echoing off the lab's walls. "You're one of us now, human," he crowed. "Soon you'll feel the cleanser's embrace and you'll understand its glorious purpose." Fighting the spreading paralysis, Walter staggered to the door, slamming it shut and engaging the lock. Zoran's mad laughter pursued him as he stumbled into the corridors, his mind reeling. The once sterile halls pulsed with an eerie green glow, the cleanser's tendrils snaking along the walls. Crew members raced past him, their faces contorted with panic as they fought to contain the relentless substance. Walter's vision blurred, his legs growing leaden with each step. He had to find Taurus, had to warn him about Zoran's madness and the true nature of the cleanser. The bridge doors loomed ahead, a beacon of hope in the nightmarish chaos. With the last of his fading strength, Walter forced out the words that could damn or save them all. "Zoran, he created it, the cleanser. It's alive." Then the void rushed up to meet him, and Walter knew no more. Taurus hefted Walter's limp form into the cramped escape pod, sealing the hatch behind them with a hiss of hydraulics. The pod shuddered as it ejected from the doomed ship, joining the scant few that had managed to launch before the cleanser's relentless advance. Inside the pod, Taurus laid Walter on the floor, his face grim as he took in the human's ashen complexion and labored breathing. The green tendrils of the cleanser snaked beneath Walter's skin, pulsing with a sickening glow. "Hold on, human," Taurus muttered, his voice rough with an unfamiliar note of concern. "I won't let you die on my watch." He tore through the pod's medical supplies, his hands shaking as he searched for something, anything, that could halt the spread of the infection. His fingers closed around a small cylindrical device, its surface etched with intricate denobulan script. An experimental healing device designed to stimulate cellular regeneration and purge foreign contaminants. It had never been tested on humans, but there was no time for hesitation. Taurus pressed the device against Walter's arm, wincing as the human convulsed, a strangled cry tearing from his throat. The device hummed, its surface growing warm as it worked to combat the insidious spread of the cleanser. Seconds turned into minutes, each one an eternity as Taurus watched the green tendrils slowly recede, the sickly glow fading from Walter's skin. The human's breathing eased, color returning to his face as the device purged the last of the infection from his body. Taurus sagged back, a wave of relief washing over him. But the moment was short-lived, shattered by the urgent beeping of the pod's proximity sensors. He lunged for the viewport, his blood running cold at the sight that greeted him. The cleanser, no longer contained by the ship's hull, surged outward into the void of space, a writhing mass of green that engulfed the fleeing escape pods one by one. Taurus's fingers flew over the pod's controls, desperately trying to plot a course to safety. But the navigational systems sputtered and died, compromised by the ship's earlier malfunctions. They were adrift, helpless as the cleanser closed in, its tendrils reaching hungrily for their tiny vessel. Beside him, Walter stirred, his eyes fluttering open. He took in the scene before him, the pulsating green mass that filled the viewport, and a look of grim determination settled over his features. "The logs," he rasped, struggling to sit up. "Dr. Zoran's logs, the cleanser, it can't survive extreme cold." Taurus's eyes widened, a flicker of hope igniting in his chest. He scanned the star charts, searching for anything that might offer a chance at survival. There, on the edge of the display, a dense field of frozen asteroids, their surfaces coated in a thick layer of ice. "If we can lure it into the field," Walter continued, his voice gaining strength, "the cold might be enough to stop it." Taurus nodded, his jaw set. It was a desperate gamble, but it was the only chance they had. He gripped the controls, his knuckles white as he sent the pod hurtling towards the asteroid field, the cleanser surging in their wake like a monstrous predator chasing its prey. Taurus clenched his jaw, the weight of their desperate situation pressing down on him like the unforgiving void of space. He looked at Walter, the human's face etched with grim determination, and knew that their only hope lay in the janitor's audacious plan. With a curt nod, Taurus relented. "Do it. But if you die out there, I swear I'll never forgive you." Walter cracked a humorless smile. "I'll try my best not to disappoint you, Commander." They set to work, their fingers flying over the pod's controls as they rewired the navigational systems. The asteroid field loomed on the view screen, a treacherous maze of frozen rock and ice. As they plotted their course, the cleanser surged forward, its pulsating mass now mere meters from the pod's hull. Walter took a deep breath, his heart pounding as he donned the spacesuit. The helmet sealed with a hiss, and he stepped into the airlock. Taurus gripped his arm, his eyes intense. "Come back alive, Walter. That's an order." Walter nodded, not trusting his voice. The airlock door slid open and he stepped out into the void. The cold embrace of space enveloped him, the stars glittering in the infinite blackness. He activated his suit's thrusters, propelling himself away from the pod. The cleanser immediately detected his presence, its glowing tendrils reaching out to engulf him. Walter's heart raced as he jetted away, the substance hot on his heels. He weaved between the asteroids, his breath fogging the helmet's visor as he pushed the suit's thrusters to their limit. The cleanser pursued relentlessly, its pulsating mass contorting and stretching as it navigated the narrow passages between the frozen rocks. Walter's muscles burned with exertion as he stayed just ahead of the substance, leading it deeper into the icy labyrinth. As he ventured further into the asteroid field, Walter noticed a change in the cleanser's behavior. Its movements grew sluggish, the eerie glow emanating from its gelatinous form beginning to fade. A flicker of hope ignited in Walter's chest. His plan was working. Behind him, the cleanser's pursuit slowed to a crawl, its tendrils now barely twitching as the extreme cold took its toll. Walter spotted a crevice within a large asteroid, a potential sanctuary from the relentless substance. He angled his thrusters, propelling himself towards the opening. As he neared the crevice, warning lights flashed on his suit's display. Life support critical, oxygen levels dropping. Walter gritted his teeth, pushing forward, just a little further. From the pod, Taurus watched helplessly as Walter's suit disappeared into the asteroid field, the cleanser close behind. The commander's hands gripped the controls, knuckles white with tension. He wanted nothing more than to go after Walter, to help him in this desperate gambit. But he knew that doing so would only risk the pod being consumed, dooming them both. So he waited, his heart in his throat, as the seconds ticked by with agonizing slowness. The cleanser's glow grew fainter, its movements more labored. And then, silence. An eerie stillness settled over the asteroid field, broken only by the soft hum of the pod's systems. Taurus leaned forward, his eyes straining to catch any sign of Walter, but the void offered no answers, no hint of the janitor's fate. The commander's jaw clenched, a sickening dread settling in the pit of his stomach. Had Walter's sacrifice been in vain? Or had he, against all odds, found a way to stop the cleanser and save them both from the cold embrace of oblivion? The pod drifted through the asteroid field, its lone occupant grappling with the weight of the unknown. In the depths of the icy labyrinth, the fate of Walter Brown and the future of the Denobulan mission hung in the balance, the story's end still unwritten. With the cleanser's movements reduced to a sluggish crawl, Walter seized his chance. He pushed off from the crevice, his suit's thrusters sputtering to life. But as he oriented himself towards the waiting escape pod, the thrusters coughed and died, leaving him adrift in the void. Walter's heart raced as he tumbled through space, the pod growing smaller with each passing second. He clawed at the suit's controls, desperate to reignite the thrusters. But the unforgiving silence of the vacuum was his only reply. From the pod's viewport, Taurus watched in horror as Walter's form grew distant, swallowed by the inky blackness. The commander's mind raced, calculations and trajectories whirling through his thoughts. There was no time for hesitation. Taurus's hands flew over the pod's controls, coaxing every last ounce of power from the engines. The small craft lurched forward, straining against the forces that sought to keep Walter and Taurus apart. As the pod drew near, Taurus's eyes widened. The cleanser's residue still clung to Walter's suit, a faint, sickly glow that promised nothing but oblivion. To bring Walter aboard now would be to invite the very doom they had just escaped. But Taurus was not a commander for nothing. His mind raced, seizing upon a desperate plan. He maneuvered the pod alongside Walter's drifting form, matching his speed. With a few deft keystrokes, he overrode the pod's airlock safeties. "Walter," Taurus's voice crackled over the suit's comm. "I need you to trust me. On my mark, I want you to eject from your suit and make for the airlock." Walter, his breath coming in ragged gasps, nodded. He braced himself, fingers poised over the suit's release mechanisms. "Now," Taurus barked. Walter slammed his hand down, the suit disengaging with a hiss. The cold embrace of space enveloped him as he pushed free, his momentum carrying him towards the waiting airlock. He tumbled inside, the hatch slamming shut behind him. Taurus's fingers danced across the controls, sealing the inner airlock door and isolating Walter from the rest of the pod. With a hiss, the outer airlock door opened, venting the remaining atmosphere and the cleanser's insidious remnants into the void. Walter, now free of the suit, collapsed to the floor, his chest heaving as he gulped down the precious air. For a long moment, Taurus watched the readouts, scanning for any trace of the cleanser. When the sensors remained clear, he finally allowed himself a sigh of relief. He opened the inner airlock door, hauling Walter into the main compartment. They sat there, shoulders slumped as the weight of their ordeal crashed down upon them. The Denobulan ship, Dr. Zoran's madness, the lives lost to the cleanser's hunger, it all seemed like a nightmare from which they had only just awoken. But as they caught their breath, a new realization settled over them. They had to warn the Denobulan authorities to prevent the cleanser from ever threatening another soul. Walter reached for the pod's comm system, his fingers trembling as he keyed in the emergency frequency. But the only reply was a burst of static, the console flashing an angry red. The communications array, damaged in their frantic escape, lay dark and silent. Taurus slumped back in his seat, the magnitude of their situation sinking in. They were alone, adrift in the vast expanse of space with no means to call for help, and with each passing moment, their life support systems ticked closer to depletion, the spectre of a slow, suffocating death looming over them. Walter and Taurus exchanged a glance, a wordless understanding passing between them. They had escaped the cleanser's ravenous grasp, but now they faced an altogether different kind of terror, the cold, uncaring embrace of the void, with no guarantee of rescue or survival. The pod drifted onward, a fragile bubble of life amidst the endless expanse of stars, its occupants clinging to the fading hope that somewhere, somehow, they might find a way to cheat the Reaper's icy grasp once more. But as the life support systems dipped lower, and the vast emptiness pressed in around them, that hope grew ever more distant, lost to the pitiless depths of space. As the pod drifted through the inky void, Walter and Taurus huddled together, their eyes fixed on the flickering console. The life support systems sputtered, each breath a precious commodity in the dwindling air supply. Hope faded with each passing moment, the vastness of space pressing in around them like a suffocating shroud. Suddenly a faint ping echoed through the pod, barely audible over the hum of the failing systems. Taurus leaned forward, his brow furrowed as he studied the readout. "A distress signal," he muttered, his voice hoarse from disuse. "Denobulan origin, coming from a nearby research station." Walter felt a flicker of hope ignite in his chest. "Can we reach it?" Taurus's fingers flew over the controls, coaxing the last dregs of fuel from the pod's reserves. "We don't have a choice, it's our only chance." The pod lurched forward, propelled by the final bursts of its engines. The research station grew larger in the viewports, its sleek lines and gleaming surfaces a welcome sight after the endless expanse of nothingness. But as they drew closer, a sense of unease crept over Walter. The station's exterior showed signs of damage, scorch marks and jagged holes marring its once pristine surface. Taurus guided the pod into the docking bay, the airlock sealing behind them with a hiss. They stepped out into the station, the silence broken only by the soft whir of the pod's systems powering down. The corridors stretched before them, eerily still and bathed in the dim glow of emergency lighting. As they ventured deeper into the station, the signs of battle became more apparent. Blast marks scorched the walls and debris littered the floors. Taurus stopped short, his hand flying to his mouth as he stifled a gasp. There, sprawled across the corridor, lay the remains of the station's crew. Their bodies were contorted, their faces frozen in expressions of agony, and on their skin the unmistakable marks of the cleanser's touch. Walter's heart hammered in his chest as they picked their way through the grim scene. Suddenly a noise echoed from the far end of the corridor, a faint rustling that sent shivers down their spines. They exchanged a glance, their unspoken fears hanging heavy in the air. With cautious steps they followed the sound, their path leading them to the station's central laboratory. The doors hung open, the interior shrouded in shadows. They stepped inside, the darkness pressing in around them. There in the center of the room lay a figure. His once pristine lab coat was torn and stained, his body broken and bleeding. But even in his final moments, Dr. Zoran's eyes glinted with a fevered intensity. "You're too late," he rasped, his voice barely above a whisper. "The cleanser was just the beginning. I've created something far more powerful, a substance that can spread across entire star systems in mere days." Walter and Taurus stood frozen, their minds reeling with the implications of Dr. Zoran's words. The scientist coughed, a trickle of blood staining his lips. "I had hoped to use this station as a staging ground, to unleash my creation upon the galaxy. But the crew discovered my plan, tried to stop me, and now—" He gestured weakly to the destruction around them, a grim smile twisting his features. "But even in death I will have my victory. I've activated the failsafe. This station will self-destruct, taking my work with it, and there's nothing you can do to stop it." With a final, shuddering breath, Dr. Zoran's eyes glazed over, his body going limp. Walter and Taurus stood in silence, the weight of their choices pressing down upon them. They knew what they had to do. They raced through the station, the self-destruct countdown echoing through the halls. With each passing second, the station shuddered and groaned, the very foundations beginning to crumble. They reached the central control room, the fail-safe mechanism blinking before them. Walter and Taurus shared a look, a moment of understanding passing between them. They were two unlikely allies, a human janitor and a denobulan commander, united by a common cause. And they knew that the galaxy's fate rested in their hands. With a nod they took their positions, their fingers hovering over the controls. The countdown ticked ever closer to zero, the station quaking beneath their feet. They knew that there would be no escape, no last-minute rescue. But as the final seconds slipped away, Walter and Taurus stood tall, their eyes locked on the viewscreen before them. They watched as the research station erupted in a blinding flash of light, a silent explosion that tore through the void, and with it, the last remnants of the cleanser and the twisted genius of Dr. Zoran were lost to the stars. You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.